Members have formed a quorum and is also the appointed time. I call to order the meeting of the Constitutional Affairs panel. Please invite the administration to join us. First item on the agenda is information papers issued since the last meeting. There have been two, namely submissions on matters for selecting the sea in 2017 and for forming the electrical in 2016, and items for discussion at the next meeting. Please wait until the administration has settled down first.
我哋歡迎。
I just welcome Mr. Lau Kong-wah, Under Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs, Mr. Gordon Leung, Deputy Secretary, Mr. Zhang Toi-ching, PAS, Mr. Stephen Yip, PAS, from the Education Bureau, and also Mr. Godfrey Kan, Senior Assistant Solicitor General from DFJ. Welcome. So, Under Secretary, what do you intend to discuss with us at the next meeting on the 16th of May? Chairman, we've got two. The first is the hearing held on HKSAR's third report under the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. The hearing was just conducted on the 8th of May, and we intend to give a briefing to the panel on that hearing. And another is the progress of our consultancy, and on a particular matter we have briefed members once and would like to report to members once again our progress. Ms. Emily Lau, I have no objection to the proposals by Mr. Lam. In particular, the hearing on ICCPR. We also attended the Geneva hearing. And regarding the outstanding issues, now I don't know what is it for, because many of the issues have been there for a long time, and little progress has been made. For instance, report of the Independent Review Committee for Prevention Handling of Potential Conflicts of Interests. And then 13, guidelines for CE in handling potential cases of conflict of interest and acceptance of advantages and entertainment concerning politically appointed officials. All right, Ms. Priscilla Leung sent in a submission 2 weeks ago, and then at once there was a discussion on that corrupt practices in elections. While I agree that we should discuss that matter, I think the government hasn't been very fair, because some of the items have been on the list for a long time. Well, sometimes the administration is not yet ready. Well, Justice Lee's report has been there for a few years. So is there anything you can brief us on, Mr. Lau? Well, regarding the two proposals I just mentioned, we do need to come back to brief members on the development. Number 11 and 13, well, we do have some developments, and in due course we'll report to members our progress. But I think this is already an appropriate juncture because potential conflicts of interest, you promised to do something about it almost 2 years ago. What difficulties do you have? I suggest that we extend our meeting next time, and can we incorporate these 2 items as well? Is that possible? So I heard some of the measures have been introduced or implemented already, and some are still under consideration. So will you give us a reply next time? We can respond to it next time. Are you asking them to make it an agenda item next time? How about next time? Well, there are already 2 items lined up for the next meeting. Regarding number 13, well, last year we put that on the website already. Well, putting something on the agenda on the website is different from being accountable to the public. Where every day you upload things to your website, do I ask you to come and give us an account every day? Of course not. These are important things, guidelines. Can we take this up at the next meeting as well? Well, Chairman, it's up to you. You can decide the agenda for the next meeting. We already got 2 proposals for the next meeting, and if you talk about July, we'll see what can be submitted to the panel in July. Chairman, you should drive them work harder. It won't do if we cannot discuss these 2 in the within this show. Secretary, according to the Undersecretary, they have already completed the 2 tasks. If so, if that be the case, they should tell us exactly what they are. I think the Undersecretary told us that some of the things were being done and some have been put to the internet or to the website, and that these 2 matters are not entirely under his responsibility, so he has to go back and check. You must give us a formal reply later. Okay, the latest in July, please, for these 2 items. Okay. So we have fixed the agenda for the next meeting. I only heard that ICCPR. Oh, the other is the progress of follow-up to the recommendations by LRC on stalking. Okay. Mr. Ip Kinyin, I saw your hand. What are you on? Item 3. Okay. Item 3, report of the HKSAR on its follow-up to the concluding observations of the UN Human Rights Committee on the 3rd report of the SAR in the light of International Covenant on Civic and Political Rights. We have got 3 papers, CB 22663/1011. There's the 3rd report of the Hong Kong SAR in the light of ICCPR. And then the next paper is CB 21502/1314-03, a means paper on the subject, and then bracket 04 is a paper prepared by our Secretariat. Undersecretary, can you walk us through CB 21502/1314-03, please? We have got a list of questions lined up for you already. Undersecretary. Thank you, Chairman. On the 12th and 13th March 2013, the UN Human Rights Committee conducted a hearing on the 3rd report of the SAR in the light of ICCPR, and then the concluding observations were endorsed a few days later, and then we already reported to the panel on the hearing of the UNHRC on the 20th of May 2013, and the concluding remarks have been uploaded to our website for members' information. We're asked to provide information within a year on how we were going to implement the recommendations by the committee. So we have provided a follow-up report which has been uploaded to the Bureau's website and also sent to this panel. We welcome members' views on our report.
We
have 6 members who wish to speak. 葉建源、陳家樂、劉慧卿、陳志全、范國威、黃碧雲。Okay. 5 minutes. 葉建源。In the UN suggestions, the third one is about ethnic minorities, equal education opportunities. It was either in the education panel or this panel I had asked for information. So these children, ethnic minorities in the kindergarten stage, what is the percentage of enrollment? Because education at that age is very important. Imagine ethnic minority child, they don't have a Chinese language learning environment. If they don't go to kindergarten, if they don't get Chinese learning opportunities, if they only join the school system at primary level, plus our curriculum is very difficult, so if they are required to learn Chinese at primary level, to use Chinese to learn other subjects, it would be very difficult. So their kindergarten enrollment is actually very critical. So I hope that we can have enrollment figures. And second, in the report, could you indicate what is the progress in learning through the medium of Chinese? Well, we have made this suggestion on many occasions. Is there any new development? So could the administration respond? So we haven't dealt with these specifics. So is it Mr. Yip? Thank you, Chairman. Regarding kindergarten enrollment, I think you had mentioned that in the education panel. We will definitely follow up, but I don't have the information on hand. But we will follow up. The second question was about the second language learning medium. We have a professional development. It's based on classroom observation. We have a lot of information. We also established an expert group to plan this framework. So all this is progressing, and by June we will be providing training for teachers to help them use this framework to help non-Chinese speaking students, to help them learn Chinese step by step. Regarding whether we have any updates, in due course we will be issuing information. We will have a notice within May. What about the Children Affairs Committee? Who can respond to that? As a matter of fact, Children's Affairs. We have a forum dealing with that, and we have to look at the children affairs issues from a family perspective. So there needs to be communication and exchange of information, and we will be conducting work through these two channels. So if you are calling for setting up of another Children Affairs Committee, it might not be necessary, but children's rights, we hope that whether it be housing, education, and medical services, the different bureaus and departments will follow up. Next, Tankalo. The report should be a follow-up on last year's ICCPR scrutiny of Hong Kong, and there were 3 specific suggestions, and it was requested that our government conduct a follow-up report to explain how the Hong Kong government would implement these suggestions. But if you look at the government paper, well, either the government doesn't understand implementation, or they are pretending to be working on it. I see there's no implementation, no cooperation. In paragraph 6 of the UN report, they say that according to ICCPR, Clause 25, they want the government to explain how elections are conducted. It just says the government is consulting the public, but last week the Chief Secretary, Carrie Lam, in an informal venue said there were things that they weren't going to undertake. But here it says the Hong Kong government will undertake further consultation, will listen to the general public's views. Well, are your doors open or shut? Are you listening or not listening? We have political party nominations. We have call for nominations. Well, how are you going to implement open elections? Well, you're not giving people the impression that you're just saying one thing and doing another thing. You're disregarding your obligations as signatory to international conventions. Are you implementing fake democracy, or what are you doing? Thank you, Mr. Chan, for your questions and suggestions. Last March, we went to Geneva to explain the Hong Kong government's work. We also heard from legislators, and legislators in general want us to complete the political reform. And last December, we had started a 5-month consultation, and in the whole process, there's a lot of transparency in different venues. I've had exchange with legislators, and we created platforms where there was opportunity for communication with the liaison office or Chinese officials. So the consultation has just concluded. We are now compiling all the data. So even in the coming 2 months, while we're compiling the data, we want to maintain this communication platform. We want the media to continue promoting Article 45 of the Basic Law. We also need to devise a solution on how to implement Article 45 of the Basic Law. So all this work will rest upon legislators and the public's efforts. Well, I just heard that the official says that they cannot accept political party nominations, and they're compiling data. Well, if you're compiling data, then how come Mrs. Carrie Lam can deny so many suggestions? Well, you said that you are continuing to compile data, but why are you doing other work? You're just performing a show. You're not listening. You're not complying with the international covenant call for open elections. Why I should be waste time with you? Anything to add? As a matter of fact, after the political reform consultation, Mrs. Carrie Lam had met with the media. But if you look at the whole history, on the first day of public consultation to the interim period, whether it was Yun Gok-kang or Mrs. Carrie Lam, articles, and after the consultation, meeting with the media, well, they have been uniform. On one hand, we need to listen to different views. On the other hand, the government has the obligation to comply with the spirit of the Basic Law. So that has been our long-standing practice. We want different parts of society to focus on the composition of the election committee, and ultimately we want universal suffrage, one person, one vote. Ms. Emily Lau. This follow-up response to the UN, it wasn't completely honest. How can they just stitch together a few sentences? They say that I have to love Hong Kong, patriotic, they cannot object to the central government. A lot of people in public are concerned about candidates being filtered. Well, the consultation has just concluded. I don't think you have read all 100,000 submissions. So how can the Chief Secretary come out and say, no, we won't have nominations by citizens, we won't have nominations by political party, and so on? Well, what are you up to? We don't follow. If the government is trying to create dialogue, but then they're shutting out ideas, so how can you, as you say in the report, that you want to work with the central government to achieve universal suffrage? Well, you should honestly tell that the UN, that the Electoral Commission will filter candidates. You're not telling the truth. This report is going to be submitted to Beijing. Will you tell Beijing that all kinds of things have been filtered? Thank you, Ms. Lau, for your opinion. We have just concluded the consultation period. As a matter of fact, we have received numerous submissions with different views. Even the political parties within the LegCo have different options proposed. We are in the compilation stage, and in the coming 2 months after we have compiled all this information, we will include opinions and disclose them and report as such to Beijing. So there won't be any omissions. I'm asking, Will the administration tell Beijing this won't work, that won't work? Is that what you will do? Will you relate Hong Kong people's concerns and how Hong Kong people want universal suffrage? Dare you mention these sentiments? Chairman, I was responding. We hope to take the different views, different political views, their reasons and rationale, and reflect that to Beijing. So, Ms. Emily, you can rest assured this report will also be made available to the public. And after this process, we will initiate the 5-step constitutional reform. I said, would they omit views they don't like? The NPC Standing Commission won't even have to deal with it. You will already filter it out. He just is wasting time. Time is very short. I already answered that question. We cannot omit or a person or a political party's views. We will reflect them honestly. I'm saying, will you tell Beijing?
But will you tell Beijing that these views are not in line with the basic law and therefore need not be considered and will not be covered in the second stage public consultation? You're going to do that. I think surely he only talked about how to write the report, but not about how. No, you don't have to write on. You don't have to answer on his behalf. No, I was just quoting him. There is no need for you to do that. We all have ears. Now, this is not the first time we prepare consultation reports. We've experience in doing this. And in the light of past experience, we will systematically reflect faithfully and comprehensively. Ms. Emily Lau asked whether we will give an account to the central government. I can say that this is for sure. Mr. Raymond Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I don't think we're happy with any of the items on this follow-up report. Now, I'd like to talk about the rights of foreign domestic helpers. Under the contract, foreign domestic helpers are required to live in, but we have seen many abuse cases, and you can see they live in a very bad situation. Some are in the kitchen, in the toilet, in the storeroom, or just a plug on top of the toilet cubicle. And because of this living requirement, they are required to work around the clock. And some employers are very mean. They do not allow DH to eat their food at home. So Para 13 is very simple. Living environment, the living requirement is the HKSAR considers it necessary to retain the living requirement for FDHS, and it forms the cornerstone of Hong Kong's policy of importing FDHS. But you know, many FDHS have come out to rally, and I think this report has not addressed the queries of the committee. Well, we have responded to their concerns, but since we don't have someone from the Labour and Welfare Bureau, perhaps Mr. Zhang can help. Mr. Zhang, according to the Labour and Welfare Bureau, the government attaches a lot of significance to protecting the interests of FDHS because they account for 8% of the population in Hong Kong. They're an important part of our labor force. I think Hong Kong is among the very few places where we provide FDHS with the same level of employment protection as their local counterparts. According to the law, they're given, they're entitled to minimum allowable wage, free food provision, free passage to and from their places of domicile, free medical treatment, and free accommodation with reasonable privacy. Well, some local workers may not enjoy the same level of welfare benefits or employment benefits. Now, it is our policy to give priority to local workers, and importation of labor is only allowed when we have a proven shortage of a certain type of labor. Well, FDHS have been imported since the early 1970s to meet the acute shortfall of local living domestic workers in Hong Kong, and the living requirement is the cornerstone of Hong Kong's policy of importing FDHS. Well, it's already 3 minutes. Regarding what Mr. Zhang just told us, it can be found in paragraph 13. He has just read out that paragraph once again. And you have no intention to review and conduct a public consultation of this issue. And how are you going to respond to the committee's requirement that you should improve their welfare? So is it that you intend to demolish or to abolish this policy? Well, under the law, FDHS may apply for legal aid if they are treated unfairly, and they can also use the Labor Department's consultation and conciliation service free of charge to resolve disputes with their employers. The standard contract provided by the government is the only allowable employment contract for FDHS, and I've also explained to you the conditions. The government carries out a review of the minimum allowable wage once every 2 years. I'm asking about the living requirement, but he wants to tell you the whole policy. Yes, perhaps we ask the Labor and Welfare Bureau to give you well, if you conduct a public consultation, that's better. But now you're not going to do anything, and you claim that there is legal protection. But if they live in the kitchen and the toilet, or even if they're sick, they may be called up at night to work. What protection do you have? Well, your question is so specific. I think he's telling you the policy background of FDHS. Perhaps you ask LWB to provide supplementary paper to Mr. Chen. Mr. Gary Fan, paragraph 6 of the concluding remarks of the committee requires the administration to take all necessary measures to implement universal and equal suffrage in conformity with the covenant as a matter of priority for all future elections. I'd like to ask whether the concluding observations are not in line with implementation of universal and equal suffrage. And it also asks the administration to take steps to withdraw the reservation to Article 25B of the Covenant. That is the right to implement elections for EXCO and LegCo. Because I'm of the view that the administration has not responded concretely to the concluding observations. So is there intention to abolish FCs so that we can have universal and equal suffrage in the formation of LegCo? Thank you. Regarding the reservation to Article 25B, I'll ask Mr. Ken to supplement later. Mr. Fan's question is about universal and equal suffrage. In fact, under Article 45 of the Basic Law, we have provisions for the election of the CEO of the nominating committee. No, I'm not asking you about the Basic Law. I'm asking you about the UNHRC's recommendations on our constitutional arrangements in the light of this covenant. Well, Chairman, I must mention the Basic Law. The Basic Law states very clearly that there will be a nominating committee to nominate candidates so that the CE can be elected by voters in a one man, one vote manner. In fact, the Basic Law has made it very clear that nomination, the only way where candidates can be nominated to the CE race is through the nominating committee. So, Under Secretary, you believe that the proposals in the Basic Law are different from that of the UNHRC? If we are to have universal suffrage for the CE election, we must have a constitutional framework. I know, but you haven't answered my question. I'm asking you about the recommendations of the UNHRC. Please answer my question. Well, we must go according to the Basic Law. All right. Are you of the view that the Basic Law is different from the recommendations of the UNHRC? Will you allow me to answer in detail? Please allow him to answer in full first. But he has burnt my time. The covenant did mention that there is no single method for elections, and a jurisdiction is allowed to take into account its historical, economic, and social, political situation and come up with an election system that suits the place. I think you have wasted my time. He has spent, he's used up all my time. I will keep in view the time. Well, we have the guidelines in the covenant, and therefore we have to enact local legislation, bearing in mind the Basic Law and in the light of the circumstances in Hong Kong, in order to have universal suffrage. Mr. Ken, thank you. Regarding the reservation to Article 25B, under Article 39 of the Basic Law, it is already said that ICCPR and ICCSAR that applies to Hong Kong will continue to be enforced, and that will include the reservation to Article 25B. In other words, that reservation continues to be enforced in Hong Kong. What steps do you have to abolish the FC seats in the Council? Concrete measures. According to the decision by NPCSC, we hope that with the hard work of different parties in 2017, we will first have universal suffrage for the election of the CE, and then we will discuss with the community the future of LegCo, and we will decide the fate as well as reform of the FC system. Dr. Helena Wong, thank you. Regarding constitutional reform, in Article 25 of the Basic Law, of the Covenant, it is said that Hong Kong should implement a universal and equal suffrage, and to ensure that all citizens can enjoy, under the new electoral system, can have the enjoyment of the right to vote and to stand for election in compliance with Article 25 of the Covenant. The public consultation exercise has just ended, and we've heard Mrs. Carrie Lam, Ms. Rimsky Yun, and Mr. Yun saying that political party nomination and civic nomination will be screened off. And the other secretary said that the report will very faithfully record all the views received. And how come in the second round or the second stage such proposals will be screened out? Because the three-track model is to ensure that in the nomination process, candidates that have the full support of the community or political parties will not be screened out. So in the first report to the NPCSC, how can you ensure that you can both respect the Basic Law take care of the wish of the community and also your obligation under Article 25 of the IPPCR. Article 25 is about the equal right to vote and equal right to stand for election. Will the administration remove the right to stand in election, stand for election, and the right to vote be taken away? And what if these provisions continue to be there? Will that deprive people's right to vote and to stand for election? Under Secretary, thank you, Dr. Hannah Wong, for your question. Dr. Wong talked about the right to vote and the right to stand for election. In fact, Article 26 of the Basic Law confirms this.
It mentions that permanent residents of Hong Kong SAR have the right to vote and have a right to stand in an election. Ms. Wong also asked, after the consultation period, we have compiled some data. We have a lot of submissions that need to be organized. Ms. Wong's question is, how can the public, how can we satisfy the public? How can we comply with the basic law? We also need the blessing of the central government. Ms. Wong would understand this is where the difficulty is. The submissions that we received over the last 5 months, we see some suggestions are quite divergent, and how can we need to conduct negotiations under the basic law in order to bring divergent views together. Ms. Wong would also agree that the public would like us to implement measures, and the mainstream view is that we want the universal suffrage project to comply with the basic law. So it seems that a lot of submissions have been disclosed, but we will continue to promote and serve as a communication platform. And Ms. Wong mentioned this is one way where we can establish a consensus. Well, we want universal suffrage without candidates filtered. Mr. Wong Yuk-man, regarding the Human Rights Commission and suggestions for the Hong Kong SAR, there are no indications that Hong Kong SAR will satisfy the UNHRC. It's a waste of time. Just now, Mr. Fan Kok Wai referred to Article 25B. Well, there won't be an answer to that. He's responding with the basic law. So, in the political reform part, the UNHCR or the Pan-Democrats talk about international standards. The SAR government will ignore you. So from day one, in this Constitutional Affairs panel, I had pointed out, this is a fake consultation. The senior officials should be sent to purgatory. They should not be thrown. We should not be throwing eggs at them. We should be throwing bombs at them. And Mrs. Carrie Lam said I was threatening her. Well, you are always referring to Article 45 of the Basic Law. You're saying that it has to be determined by the NPCSC, they have to confirm the step 1. Well, we all know what it's about. The pro-government camp will rally its troops and call for one person, one vote, universal suffrage. But we all know who is going to generate the candidates. We have no choice now. You either occupy Central, the government won't back down. If you don't dare demonstrate, then you just have to accept it. There's no choice. You want nominations. For the pan-Democrats, they don't dare to call for a referendum. If we have electronic vote, they'll only have 100,000 or so votes. So all we hear is different mumbling in the form as a response. So I'm not going to deal on that, dwell on that. I'm going to move on to the foreign domestic helper. In paragraph 21, regarding protection of the FDH rights, we need to have an affordable platform for them to seek redress, and the FDH, within 2 weeks of the end of the contract, they have to leave Hong Kong. Well, so the UNHCR feels that Hong Kong government has done enough in this area, but the SARG is only continuing its long-standing policy. So in the legal framework, we need to be uniform in dealing with FDH and local employees. Well, in the last case where the Indonesian helper was abused, it shows that we have not been following up closely. So these domestic helpers, they could not report their cases. Well, we feel that the Labor Department, in dealing with this, there are loopholes in the mechanism. This FDH, they had to leave home because of economic necessities. Well, but I do agree with the government's response on the 2-week requirement. If there are special circumstances, if there are legal conflicts, this is my suggestion. I hope that there can be some improvement in this area. No response, just an opinion. Next, Ms. Starry Lee. I'd like to ask, I've seen the response to the UNHCR regarding political reform. Hong Kong public are very clear. It has to comply with the basic law, and the basic law is our constitution. And according to the constitution, the basic law, we want to see universal suffrage. Why don't you put this in your response? Second point, regarding FDH being abused. FDH being abused, this has become international news. We cannot allow FDH to be abused when they're working in Hong Kong. The law enforcement agencies need to deal with it seriously. But before arriving at this conclusion, have they, because the SAR, because the government has said that the FDH should enjoy their basic rights, well, when this conclusion was drafted, it seems that Hong Kong has not ensured that some workers enjoy basic rights. My observation is that FDH working in Hong Kong, they enjoy all kinds of protection. They have minimum wage, paid holidays. Well, have you communicated with the UNHCR that the employment conditions? Our employment conditions are very attractive. That's why we have so many FDH coming to Hong Kong. Why did they come to the first conclusion? I'd like Mr. Zheng to respond to the second question. Regarding the first question, we need to respond to the Human Rights Commission. We are compiling some data. We have very diverse views and mainstream views, but we cannot say that all opinions will be disclosed. We still need to analyze and categorize the data. Mr. Zhang? Well, according to Labor Department statistics, the government will not tolerate any abuse of HDH. Whenever we receive complaints, the investigations will commence. If the FDH is willing to act as witness, we'll have immediate prosecution. Now, with the recent Edwina incident, the SARG has already taken up follow-up work, including meeting with the Indonesian consulate. We also had, for the first time, sent officers to take Edwina's statements in Indonesia. My question was specific. Why did UN have this misunderstanding? They felt that Hong Kong FDH basic rights are not safeguarded. Is it because of the Edwina incident? Because my understanding is Hong Kong employment conditions compared to other countries are very generous. Well, the Labor Department has stepped up promotion. There's education on how FDH can protect their basic rights. Starting from February, we started other promotion, personal safety, withholding of personal identity documents. The Labor Department will continue to place adverts in Philippine and Indonesian newspapers. They will also have information kiosks set up on the weekends. We'll also urge employers to treat their FDH better. The Labor Department also will monitor employment agencies, and in the long term will fine-tune the licensing regime for these employment agencies to better ensure the rights of FDH and the employers. Well, has the UN compared Hong Kong's employment conditions? Are we more generous than neighboring jurisdictions? Have you provided this information? I had attended that meeting. The SAR officials members are also very concerned about the abused FDH and provided some views. So on this occasion, we needed to make this response. So in the future, if we find areas that need to be improved, we'll continue to fine-tune these areas. Well, they received different opinions and asked the SAR government to respond. Well, we still have 6 people in the queue, so we won't have a second round.梁美芬、葉國謙、蔣麗雲、林大輝、葉劉淑儀、林大輝。蔣麗雲6 梁美芬。Chairman, I have felt that there is no real or fake universal suffrage. It's just whether it complies with the Constitution. Article 39 of the Basic Law, when the Basic Law took effect, there was no universal suffrage in Hong Kong. So what do we rely on? Well, we have to rely on Article 45. It refers to universal suffrage, but there's no timetable. So we need to rely on the 2007 NPCSC ruling that by 2017 Hong Kong can have universal suffrage. But if you don't like the Basic Law, because somebody asked, is the Basic Law, well, if you scrap the Basic Law, then we have nothing. We have to rely on the Basic Law. We have one country, two systems. The Article 45 refers to the election committee. I had said in the district councils, the earlier you mention this, the better. So nominations by political parties, nominations by citizens is not in compliance. So you need to have focused discussions. The politics and discussions is on the how to improve the election committee. Second, I think the election committee is not evil, it's not a monster.
If you want universal suffrage, well, I think it is good to have 4 sectors in the nomination committee. Now, the CEO will not be like legislators. He cannot just succeed by one single issue. He has to be both politically and economically competent. So I think the nominating committee is just a requirement. You call it a filter. I don't think so. Now, if you fulfill these requirements, then I'm sure you can get the support of the NC. Members of the NC are not rubber stamps. Whether you can become a candidate depends on your strength. All countries are like that. In the U.S., they have to go to political party that is widely representative. It has got people from grassroots as well as the business sector. Well, for political parties, we have got only about 30,000 members in political parties, whereas for NC, we have a few hundreds of thousands of members. Raymond Wong Wong Yuk-man talked about I don't think this is Mr. Wong Yuk-man. Please do not interfere. Please do not interrupt Wong Yuk-man. Mr. Wong Yuk-man, please shut up. I don't think he has understood the situation, but I forgive him for saying this. We have to understand that members or people from Hong Kong do not want a reform package that is not good. Well, if you don't have confidence, of course you don't want me to finish. Now, in a democratic society, we should be entitled to express our views that may be different from yours. Otherwise, you can't even convince me. You may just want a democracy that allows you to have all the say. So at this stage, the government should focus on how the NC should be formed. It should have the 4 sectors as proposed so that we can have a chance of universal suffrage in 2017 and that the candidates will truly have strength economically and politically. I'd like to ask the administration, whether in 2 months' time we can have some focused proposals for members' discussion, and to ensure that they can comply with the basic law, and it's about how we can enhance and improve the electorate base of the NC. Yes, we will spend 2 months on consolidating views. We hope that in July we can have some proposals for the CE and also the central government. And then we'll come back to Hong Kong for the second stage public consultation. We will also introduce a bill to the Council. The bill will be based on the requirements of the Basic Law. I asked Dr. Brazilian to rest assured. Mr. Ip called him. Some members mentioned constitutional development in Hong Kong. Yes, in the past 4 months, views have been divergent. And as the Undersecretary said, at each stage it is appropriate for the government to give some responses. I hope we will not be too far-fetched and innovative in our proposals. We should. Now, it is our common goal to have universal suffrage for the CE election in 2017. If we continue to argue in this way, I don't think we can have any constitutional development. I think it is very clear that members have expressed the wish to follow the Basic Law. Universal suffrage should be implemented according to the Basic Law. It is only on this basis that we can move forward constitutionally. Well, recently, some people talked about international standards and disregard for the Basic Law. I think such remarks are extremely dangerous. However, regarding the 3 recommendations in the concluding observations by the UNHRC, there's mention of Article 25B, but it's always clear that we have registered a reservation to Article 25B of the Covenant. This is very clear. I really want to hear the administration's views on the concluding observations of the UNHCR. Shouldn't the administration tell the UNHCR that we have no intention to withdraw the reservation to Article 25B here? Different countries have their own ways of elections according to their constitution and also their actual circumstances. With the so-called international standards, it's not really a novel idea, but these are just used to challenge the Basic Law. So can the administration please give a focused reply? Mr. Ken. Article 39 of the Basic Law says that the provisions of the ICCPR and IPPCR as applied to Hong Kong shall remain in force. And back then, the British government had registered reservations to some of the provisions. and it is also in line with the joint declaration. Regarding the methods for electing the C and forming the electrical, it is clearly set out in the basic law that it should be done in accordance with the principle of gradual and orderly progress, and the ultimate aim is the selection of the C by universal suffrage, and and it should also be in line with the actual situation in the Hong Kong SAR. So Article 39 has provided sufficient room for implementation of Article 45 and 68 of the Basic Law. I supplement, Mr. Lau. This convention, this covenant is about is about implementing universal suffrage for selection of the CE. My question is very clear. Will you consider withdrawing this reservation? No, we have no intention to do that for the time being. Ms. Zhang, just now Ms. Starry Lee asked the Undersecretary the issue of FDHS since the incident of Ariwana. Well, many employers in Hong Kong are rather sad, and we cannot imagine that something like that can happen in Hong Kong. And we are worried that the incident has damaged the image of Hong Kong in the international community. So we hope that the administration can explain a little bit more to the UNHCR how come we had that incident and what improvements we have made. Some members asked about protection of the rights of FDHS. For instance, the accommodation should not be too small, and to protect their interests, perhaps the living requirements should be removed. Secretary, if you have time, I hope you can listen more to the views of the community. Why do people employ FDHS? Mainly because many families have children and elderly persons at home, and we need FDH to take care of them at night so that house women can work. If we waive the living requirement, then that may not be too convenient. In fact, FDHS should have a day of rest in a week. We should ensure that they can enjoy the day of rest and they can then meet their compatriots, and if they've been subject to unfair treatment or abusive treatment, they can have ways and means to reflect that to their friends. Now, in para 3 of the Article 3 of the ICCPR is about women's right to be appointed to ASBs and to participate in politics. In fact, we are doing quite well. We have 34.7% of government positions being occupied by ladies. But then, in the election committee, only 15% of the members were women. And for voters, we have 55% of our voters being women, and the women population is also higher than that of the male. So in the formation of the nominating committee, how can we ensure that there will be more women in the committee? And we can also make reference to other parliaments in Europe, for instance. How come they can achieve such a high rate of women members. So can you ensure that more women can take part in politics? Mr. Lau. Thank you. Ms. Chang has made excellent observations. If you look at government, take a look at the civil service, I think women are doing quite well in the upper echelon of government, but in advisory bodies and election committee, perhaps you talk about electoral and also district council as well. These are formed by elections, so I think we all here we have to work hard to promote the participation of women in politics. Can we set up quota? I'm afraid it's not easy in Hong Kong nowadays to do this, but I do agree with Ms. Jiang that if we can appoint more women to ASBs, that would be a nurturing ground so that more ladies can take part in politics in the future.
Well, I'd like the Secretary to pledge that they would conduct studies into this, because overseas they would have women's groups allowing further to promote women's participation in politics. Lam Dai Fai. Well, Mr. Wong Yuk-man, criticism of Lau Guanghua, I don't agree. It's groundless. Lau Guanghua, when he was a legislator, his abilities were not lower than Mr. Wong Yuk-man, even though he's undersecretary now. His performance compared to Wong Kam-sing, Hak Kim, Chen Mao-bo, So Kam-leung, Greg So, he's no worse than them. You don't need to comment on his career. Well, as Mr. Lau Guanghua responded, the covenant there is no fixed standard in elections across the different jurisdictions. The spirit is the same though. It should be universal and equal, but these standards are different amongst the different peoples. Well, how can we have equal elections? We have to have consultation. We need discussion. Now, regarding the CE universal suffrage by 2017, the government has undertaken consultation, and the results are quite good. And the political reform trio headed by Mrs. Carrie Lam are doing a good job. They visited districts. I see the trio on different occasions, so they have done a good job in consultation. Just now we heard criticisms, so we need discussions. It has to be sincere. If there's no sincerity, that it would just be a fake consultation. We also need to have grounds and basis. We have to comply with the basic law. If there's no basis, then these discussions would just be ridiculous, and the outcome would not be recognized. So we need to consider the different historical, the we have to consider the different local conditions. We can take reference from the Philippines, from the U.S., but you cannot copy them 100%. It might not be applicable to Hong Kong. In the past, we had visited Shanghai. The liaison officer said they would meet with the different legislators after the Shanghai trip, but up till now, I see that the other party had made sincere invitations, but why are the different political parties standing them up? They have different. Why do they come up with different excuses to put off the meetings? And is this part of discussions? We need to go through different rounds of discussions. So I'm also worried that, as Mr. Moyle said, they would need demonstrations. I don't think a lot of the Hong Kong people will support that. Prosperity stability is very stable. Look at the disturbances in Vietnam. There's no benefit to disturbances. Well, time's up. You are concerned about other people's future more than anything else. Regina, well, the undersecretary was lambasted just now. Well, universal suffrage is about voting rights. It has to be equal voting rights, and we don't have universal standards. So, for example, in the UK, Parliament members have the nomination right. In the US, the political parties can nominate a candidate. In France, a person needs 500 officials' nomination to become a candidate. We don't have nominations by the citizens. So you have so many experts in the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau. You should make a clear statement. I don't think political party nominations are suitable either. It's we cannot do without the central government. If you insist on that, you will just end up with an argument with the central government. This is a political reality. And in the next phase, since you've already consulted the public on principles, what will you do in the next phase? Will you provide the CE with a summary report, and the CE will report to Beijing? Will you? I hope that the specific proposals you make will be in line with the basic law. So I hope you can strengthen promotion in this area. And could you give us more specifics? What will you be looking at? Thank you, Mrs. Ip. In the consultation period, we had referred to the reform. The return of the CE has to be in compliance with the basic law, especially regarding nominating rights. We point out that the only institution with nominating right is the election committee. But in the whole consultation period, we value the different views, including the political parties. We feel that in the whole consultation period, it is necessary to hear from different parties. But ultimately, I agree with Mrs. Regina Yip. We need to fall back on the basic law. And at the next phase, after we have drafted a report, we will conduct a second round of consultation. And we would like to focus on the composition of the election committee and the nomination procedures in the election committee, how we can use democratic measures, or how many candidates need to be returned. That would be the focus of the next round of consultation. So after that consultation, we will propose the government option. It has to have a legal basis, and we hope that it is politically acceptable and it is feasible. Next, Paul Jie. The theme today should be the report, but the report, this third report, is starting from 1999. The concerns have been narrowed down, but it seems that on this occasion, it seems that there's not much left to say. But I'd like to mention that regarding FDH, we had right of abode court case, and one of the main points was there was a 2-week break, and the second emphasis, why was it legal? There were live-in requirements. Otherwise, according to Article 24.4, when expatriates have spent 7 years in Hong Kong, they can get IDs. It seems that more and more FDH have, aside from right of abode opinions, they also have views regarding the live-in requirements. So some colleagues say that Hong Kong employment conditions are generous. Then, if that is the case, then they should even have a minimum wage. So, of course, it's still a long way off. So could we, in our report, describe the difficulties? Coming back to political reform, just now Ms. Regina referred to comparisons with foreign jurisdictions. We need to focus on the election committee. We should have done that a long time ago. If we now don't have focus because the discussions were too wide. So in the second phase, the focus should be on the election committee. It wasn't created in a vacuum. There were historical reasons. So we shouldn't be talking about issues beyond the basic law. We are now undergoing a political reform. It's not just a legal reform. So whether we have political party nominations or the nominations, we should have the public understand that aside from legal considerations, why we can't have nominations by political parties, nomination by citizens. So I hope that administration can focus on this. Otherwise, they can't convince the general public. That's opinion. What about how about a response on FDH? I'd like to respond to both. First, on political reform. I have to thank Mr. Palte for reminding us what we need to focus on the next round. Of course, we can conduct political analysis, but the legal basis, the history, I think that is just as important, and it is insufficient. So in the coming 2 months, you'll see that we are continuing to communicate with the media, but we will take on board your suggestions and do a good job. Well, after the 5 months of consultation, I feel that we want to implement this universal suffrage. Regarding FDH and 2 weeks leave and live-in requirements, this is an important foundation, so we will not have any change. But of course, supplementing their rights, I think our colleagues will continue their efforts. Yeah.
All right, we still have 2 more members asking questions for the first time, but we still have another agenda item. So can you please bear in mind the time constraint. Ms. Chen Yuhan to be followed by Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Well, both of my questions will relate to foreign domestic helpers. Yes, you have told them our current situation, which is correct, but you have missed an important point. FDH, since a case of abuse by an employer, well, we have had a number of meetings, and I've also joined these meetings. And I think that there is a big problem with employment agencies. They have exploited foreign domestic helpers. They took away, some of them have taken away, deducted their earnings. They have extorted a lot of money from FDHs when even they were in their hometown. And I think Matthew Zhang was present at these meetings. I think you have to admit to the fact that FDHs have to put up with abusers because their employment agencies are not helping them, and they have exploited FDHs. We're told, for instance, that for FDHs, they have to spend the whole of their first earnings from first contract to repay debts, and it's only at the second contract that they can send their earnings home. Of course, we cannot control what other countries are doing, but I think we can take action against such employment agencies in Hong Kong, because FDHS organizations have pointed out this issue, and I think you have to admit this in your report. And secondly, I hope that the Undersecretary can be realistic. Yes, we have got legal protection for them, but we have loopholes, and there is a big problem when it comes to regulation and monitoring of employment agencies. We cannot turn a blind eye to the problems faced by FDHS. And para 13 is your reply to the relevant committee about the live-in requirement. It forms the cornerstone of Hong Kong's policy of importing FDHS. Yes, I attach significance to this view, and it's quite sure that you have heard the views of the public. Why have we imported FDHS? Because we no longer have local living domestic workers in Hong Kong. It is impossible to require local workers to live in. So we only allowed FDHS to be implemented if they live in the with their employers. We know that for some nuclear families, they don't want FDHS to live with them, but that's a separate matter. We started to import FDHS because there was a shortage of local living domestic workers. If you allow them to live outside their employer's home, then there would be strong opposition from local workers, including the FTU. Because if they are allowed to live away from their employers' homes, they will be major competitors of local domestic helpers. I've been told that it is very difficult to find a part-time domestic help on Hong Kong Island. They have so many conditions. But I think these are normal conditions. They want to be able to take care of their own homes as well. Yes, local domestic workers have their own conditions for their own protection. If you need somebody to live in your place, then you can apply for a FDH to work for you. So we support the administration's response. I think, however, you have missed out the point about employment agencies. They are not regulated at all. And when FDHS have problems in Hong Kong, they don't know where to find help from these agencies. So you really have to face up to this problem. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Yeah, I'd like to refer to the remarks by Mr. John Jie. Constitutional reform and universal suffrage is for the people of Hong Kong. They are users. If Hong Kong people want civic nomination, should it be for a third party to decide whether it is right or wrong? What a joke. I've never heard such a theory. Basic law was not drafted by us. It was by drafters of the basic law. And after so many years, if we don't think that the basic law is right, why can't we change it? It's just that the NPCSC would not do it, and we could not sue the NPCSC for breach of their own constitution. You can only tell NPCSC that it has breached or violated its own constitution. So it is not really an effective mechanism, and there is no way to judge whether the NPCSC has violated the constitution. And Paul Jie talked about management of expectations. This is wrong. I think it is for Hong Kong people to tell the mainland what we want. Yes, communist parties are like that. You know what? They will not tell you what they want. Rather, they ask you to write a submission to them. So you expect Hong Kong people to tell them that we don't want a civil nomination. We want a civil recommendation only. Now, well, Hong Kong people have told you what we want. Why are you going to screen out what we've told you? I know it is for the Communist Party to decide what it will give us. It has the right, but why should you stop Hong Kong people from expressing our views? After all, they will be the final goalkeeper. If somebody they don't like is elected the CE, then they can refuse to appoint him. So I think you you are forcing Hong Kong people to say that, well, since they don't like a public nomination, we will not mention that. I think the alliance of the universal suffrage is doing that now. There will be negotiations very soon. They are successful. I think I have the right, I have the duty to point out here, why do we have to comply with laws drafted by the Chinese Communist Party? And if we don't like the law, why do we have to shut up? And why is the Chinese Communist Party so timid? Now, if I run in the sea race and if I get elected, you can choose not to appoint me. Why should you stop Hong Kong people from speaking their mind? And you are being praised by somebody. It's just like the FS every year. He rolls out some bullshit and nonsense, and all the policy secretaries will praise him. I think it's filibustering is just like constitutional reform. Who, the more senior the official, well, what he said would certainly be supported and praised by other parties, no matter how bad, how nonsense it is. All right. And so, for instance, in the last constitutional reform exercise, there was something rather bad, and then it was endorsed by the Communist Party, and then I think we expect this to happen again in 2020. So, Mr. Lau, Under Secretary, I would like to ask you, why can't Hong Kong people's opinion appear in the consultation report? Why are you going to disregard views on political nomination and civil nomination? That question was answered, but you were not yet here. So please answer very quickly. Do you work for Hong Kong people or for Chinese Communist Party? Do you receive your pay by renminbi? Well, we're going to consolidate views collected, and then we're going to reflect all views in a systematic manner. All right, item 4. Progress of the work on anti-discrimination on grounds of sexual orientation and gender identity. Paper CB 21502/1314/05 from the administration, and paper CB 21502/1314/06 from our secretariat. We have to hand over the venue to the next panel by 4:30 because they have a public hearing this afternoon, so we must be punctual. 2 members have raised their hands. Do you want to walk us through the paper? Chairman, I think we can go to the Q&A direct. Okay, how many members would like to ask questions? A show of hands. Wong Yuk Man, Helena Wong, and Sid Ho. Any more members? Raymond Chen, Leung Kwok Hong. 5. So I must draw a line here. And Priscilla Lau. 6. And Paul Tse. As soon as I said, I was going to draw a line. Hands started to show. 3 minutes each. Mr. Wong, your command. Thank you. Just reading the government's document, we may feel encouraged by the administration's work because it said that it has been adopting a multi-pronged approach to promote equal opportunities for people of different sexual orientation and transgenders. And I think if Priscilla just reads this paragraph, she may go crazy. I think this is just an illusion. The government is practicing discrimination on the grounds of sexual orientation and gender identity. For instance, transgender transgenders were allowed to get married, not until won a court case. So the government has decided to amend the marriage ordinance. Secondly, it has not followed the practice of the UK in setting up a expert assessment panel, and all transgenders are required to have completed all sorts of operations before they're allowed to apply to get married. In fact, the UN has urged all jurisdictions to abolish the requirement for them to undergo operations before their applications can be considered. More than 100 countries have accepted marriages between people of the same sex, and yet we have fallen behind these places. If we continue to mark time, I'm afraid there will be more and more disputes in the future. And what about the legal rights and obligations of people who are recognized to be married couples overseas? Now, Asia, we have two EXCO members that are UC chairman, that were UC chairman, and yet the government has not done anything to promote equal opportunities, and it dares to say that it has adopted a multi-pronged approach to promote equal opportunities for people of different sexual orientation and transgenders. There is still a little time left for Mr. Lau Kong-wah. Can you speak into the microphone? Perhaps it's because you have been to public forums too much. If I don't wear earpiece, I can't hear you. So please speak up. Thank you. Mr. Wong, for your views. Regarding the marriage ordinance, I understand that the BC Bills Committee is scrutinizing the bill, the amendment bill. Regarding the elimination of discrimination against sexual minorities, we indeed are doing a lot of things to educate the public.
Helena Wong. Well, after reading this paper, my feeling is that there's all talk, no action. Paragraph 7, the government tells us that how to eliminate discrimination against sexual minorities. Well, there's a large gulf. It's a very controversial topic, and that's it. They will handle it carefully. Then what? And then in June 2013, there was an advisory group on eliminating discrimination against sexual minorities. There have been 4 meetings in 1 year. So you're just stalled. Then you are gonna do studies. So the administration, are they determined to legislate? How will you protect the rights of sexual minorities? Do you have the determination? If you say that that's a highly controversial issue which must be tackled cautiously, well, if you want to protect the different minorities and you want to, in light of eliminating discrimination and equal opportunities, you will legislate. But if you don't have that intention, then any society, when we talk about sexual minorities, any society, any culture, it's going to be controversial. So are we going to keep our hands off anything that's controversial? Then we'll never be able to protect these minorities against discrimination. So what is the government trying to do? So will you stall whenever there's a controversy? Otherwise, what timetable do you have? What will you do next? Of course, I'd also like to ask, paragraph 9, you say there is there will be focus groups, and so on. So is this going to be done by the government, or is it going to be subcontracted out? And what are the goals and objectives of the study? Could you provide us a copy? So before they conclude the whole study, there's still a chance for some input. There's no time you have to respond. We'll report back. Ms. Sidho, a lot of people have discriminatory behavior and attitudes, and they don't know that. They say they don't discriminate sexual minorities, but then you say, I need to respect them, so I need to respect triads as well. So there's no clear definition on discrimination. The majority of people don't understand the difficulties sexual minorities face. So in public administration, for example, when couples are registered and within the civil service, if they have partners registered overseas, can they come back and tell this CSB and get medical benefits for their spouse and tax benefits? Well, if the government itself doesn't deal with that, then you don't admit to your own discrimination, then it's not surprising that this society is confused. Because if people are concerned if there's discrimination legislation, then there's no freedom of speech. You should treat them uniformly. So, do you admit to discriminating? We don't have discrimination. Just now, Ms. Sidho mentioned that within the government we have practical guidelines. We hope that each department to not discriminate in these guidelines. It's drafted in accordance with the current legislation. So your laws are discriminatory. I'm not saying we should legislate same-sex marriages, but Hong Kong residents that are registered with a spouse overseas, can the spouse get tax benefits? Can they apply for a family reunion? If in the public administration, people with different sexual inclinations and have spouses, well, then the government needs to review first and give a definition on discrimination. And the sexual minorities should be treated fairly as soon as possible. Okay? Chen Jixun. The administration provides a progress report and every year, and we have less than 30 minutes to deal with this subject. You are not paying sufficient attention to this topic. This work progress report has no progress. The 5-prong approach, promotion, the funding, and then in the next 3 steps, the advisory group's work is divided. So my question is, if you're talking about work progress, do we have standards for measuring progress? Has it improved? So do you think that discrimination is serious? Out of a scale from 0 to 10, what is the score? And we need to communicate with stakeholders. The EOC is only taken as one stakeholder, but they're one of many. under the Marriage Amendment Bill, the EOC was a body, as an institution that only spoke for 3 minutes. Their views were ignored. We find that the EOC doesn't have communication with the administration. They will have a large consultation, a survey, but ultimately, will the EOC just be taken as one out of numerous bodies for reference only? Well, 2 questions. We need to assess the level of discrimination, the actual discrimination in Hong Kong. And we've recruited a consultant to conduct an in-depth study. We have about 200 sexual minorities to examine their potential discrimination. So after this study, we'll hand it back to the advisory group. Just now it was asked whether we'll submit to LegCo. We'll consider reporting back. So this is the assessment. The EOC and different stakeholders' views, we attach a lot of importance to that. So the different stakeholders can communicate. The advisory group has been convened for less than a year, but the work. So what is the discrimination level out of a scale of 0 to 10? So what time's up? I'm not discriminating, Mr. Leung Kok-hong. Well, it's hard to eradicate discrimination. Sometimes I discriminate as well. It's a subconscious activity. Well, we need to understand that people have differences, deficiencies. It doesn't mean that some person is better or other people are evil. But we need the government to legislate to stop the spread of discrimination. We need education and so on. Yes, it might take 1,000 years. But you have an obligation through legislation to prevent the spread of discriminatory behavior. A person with different sexual inclination, will they have less legal rights? Well, if they have less legal rights, then it's discrimination. Then the mainstream will deprive him of his rights. By discriminating him, his rights are deprived. It's very cruel. I heard those people speak. If my son is like that, but then they are discriminating against their own children. The children are their property. So I have a question. If you feel there is discrimination and if there's no legislation, then how are those being discriminated, or people who are discriminating, how can discrimination be eradicated? Right? There's a difference. Do you want the Undersecretary to respond? Well, Mr. Leung said that he himself might discriminate. So if you find me after I discriminate, then I'll remember that on the next occasion. Well, this might be. That's why education is so important. But we don't just stop at education. As we said, we have a sexual minority study who look at the actual discrimination. It's already underway. And we're also looking at overseas anti-discrimination legislation. we're also working through the advisory group. So within less than a year, we are already undertaking this work, and we'd like to hear from everybody. Ms. Priscilla. I'm a member of the advisory group. When it was convened, York Chow had attended the meeting. I had asked him to do some homework to look at case examples, case studies, but he has not submitted that work. I received a barrister, Paul Diamond, a barrister in the UK, his information. He had contacted me, and a few years ago, Derby Council, Christian couple, they had adopted some children, and they were prevented from adopting children because they said they would not promote, they would not disseminate information on homosexual activities. So we had discussed a lot of cases in the advisory group. We have, for example, reverse discrimination. So in Hong Kong, I think we need to clearly state that there's a lot of pressure, but in Article 32 of Basic Law, we have right of religion, and after reunification, the One Country, Two Systems pledge that we could retain freedom of religion, and recently the International School of Christianity, the principal they have been urged to write to the Education Bureau, and they said that they are promoting Christian values. So before legislation, they are already being prohibited. So this is not simply a matter of legislation. And Paul Diamond is concerned that would learn from the wrong examples. And the U.S. and Canada, they have judicial reviews.
The painful experience in Canada and the States is that there are numerous JRs to the effect that some states have gone so poor. So if we legislate very rashly, I'm afraid the community will be more polarized. Posy. I am a member of the UOC, and I agree with Mr. Raymond Chan's remarks on the role of the UOC. Since UOC is a government-funded organization, then we should attach more significance to their position and views, and more resources should be given to the UOC. Now, we face many serious problems. If we look at the UK, it took them 7 or 9 years before the relevant legislation could be enacted. In Hong Kong, our values are predominantly Chinese, and I think education and legislation are two-pronged, are two things, and I think we cannot be pushed too hard. Otherwise, according to Newton's second law is action and reaction. Because if we push too hard, then opposition or reaction may be even stronger. The marriage amendment bill has caused a lot of objection already, and the exercise may be counterproductive. So for gender identity, we should tread cautiously. While I'm all for a society of tolerance and plurality, I think we should move cautiously, and organizations such as EOC should be given more resources to carry out pioneering work so that it can pave the way first. Otherwise, if we very rashly legislate on this, then it will be a problem. It's just like Justice Chen's judgment in W's case. Now, he said that there is insufficient evidence in Hong Kong to show that we have sufficient awareness or psychological preparation to adopt this change in culture. Undersecretary. Yes, we discuss with the EOC resource allocation every year. In principle, we usually can satisfy their demand for resources. And I agree with Mr. Tse that legislation takes time. And are we ready for legislation now when it comes to anti-discrimination? I think it is a bit premature, and we should enhance communication with different stakeholders before we can move on to the next step. Well, the chairman of the next panel has already come in, and I think we have to end our meeting here. I certainly have no discrimination against any particular topic. All right, if there is no AOB, then the date of next meeting is the 16th of June. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.